And back to Washington, where work to end the shutdown continues, and Senate Republican Conference Chair Tom Cotton joins us. President Trump, truth last night. Democrats have shut down the United States government right in the midst of one of the most successful economies. I am happy to work with Democrats on their failed health care policies or anything else, but first they must allow our government to reopen. In fact, they should open our government tonight. Do you see anything, and perhaps this situation with the airports could be something that helps break the logjam so that the two parties can get together, talk, get this done?
Well, Dana, the real-world consequences are going to start piling up here, and hopefully that'll help the Democrats come to their senses. As President Trump said, as Speaker Johnson and Senator Thune have said all along, there's nothing to negotiate until the Democrats vote to open the government. If they want to talk about giving taxpayer-funded health care to illegal aliens at that point, then they're certainly welcome to do so. But they need to open the government. You started to see some consequences yesterday with these air traffic delays out in...
Just a quick point on that. So with funding the illegal aliens as far as health care is concerned, a lot of people are getting this, in my opinion, wrong. I listen to Jimmy Dore, I listen to a lot of other guys, and they're basically saying that that's not true. They're not illegals, and he's just cutting Medicare for average Americans. I think the cut to Medicare, from what I've seen, from what I've noticed, is that there is some cutting of Medicare to people, regular people, but on the illegals front, they're saying that they're not cutting it to illegals because the people that are here are not illegal. And that's not true, right? If somebody comes here, everybody that comes here and goes through a port of entry claimed asylum status, refugee status. They claimed some kind of a status because they were prompted to do that by people that were informing them, when you come into America, this is how you get around their rules. This is how you get around their laws. This is how you obfuscate and kind of do a workaround so that you can stay within the country. So they go to a port of entry and they declare, I'm a refugee or I'm fleeing, whatever, this and that. And now they say, okay, you are now being reviewed. And that process takes for years. And so they're counting those people that are getting the benefits as legal. And in my opinion, that's just not right. It's totally blurring the lines. Like if that's the case, and there are no illegal immigrants in the United States, I mean, it's just an odd thing to take that and say, okay, you came here, especially if you're fleeing in a manner that is declaring asylum. Like you can't, asylum isn't something where you can just say, all right, I'm being persecuted in Guam, and I'm going to go to America. No, it doesn't work like that. There's a couple of countries between Guam and America. I'm not sure how many, but there's a few. So if you're being persecuted in your country and you're seeking asylum, you have to stop at the next country. You don't get to just hop around and it's not shopping for houses. You don't get to choose, pick whichever one you want and just get to live there because you're being persecuted in another country. That's not how that works. I think all of these asylum claims, with the exception of anyone that's directly from Mexico or Canada, if you're from Mexico and you're Canada and you're being persecuted, okay, then you have a valid asylum claim. If you got here in a boat, that's another one, right? If you're from Cuba and the next stop is you get here in a boat, that's fine. If you put yourself on a boat and you get to the shores and you're that's a totally different story. If you can get to America, that's a hell of a trip. Maybe you were being persecuted over there, and then we could take a look at the claim. But for all of these South American countries that are not Mexico, you don't have a stake. You don't have a leg to stand on. You went through other countries and came here. Those should not be considered legal residents or aliens or whatever. And that's where the obfuscation is coming in. That's where some people are saying, no, the Republicans are lying. Republicans do lie about a lot of shit. In this particular case, that's not the case. They were just the bulk of this was going to illegal funded healthcare. It's just the way they worded
California. Later this week, the Women, Infants, and Children's Nutritional Program is probably going to run out of money. That means poor moms with kids may not be able to buy milk and eggs and breads for their kids. We're going to have delays for civilian employees' paychecks later this week, then troop paychecks next week. These are all because the Democrats refuse to open the government, and then they can negotiate about health care, immigration, or anything else. And frankly, Dana, what we started hearing around the Senate yesterday is that there's a big left-wing rally in Washington, D.C. next Saturday, October 18th. And Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are so scared of their own radical left-wing base, they plan to keep the government shut until after that rally, and only then will they vote to keep the government open. They shouldn't be playing political games with nutrition for kids and our troops' pay, they should vote to open the government today.
Okay, so that's interesting about what you're saying about the protest, because there is a theme out there about Senator Schumer. And one of the reasons he has, held steady on this one, where he didn't in March, is because he's concerned that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or someone else from his left would be challenging him before next year. Do you think there's any semblance of truth to that?
100% true, Dana. We've seen it now for months in the Senate. Chuck Schumer is scared, first, of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and second, of his radical left-wing base. That's why we're in this Schumer shutdown. Chuck Schumer knows better. For the 4 years he ran the Senate, he put 13 bills, just like this one, on the floor, short-term funding bills, to allow the parties to continue to negotiate. He voted for all 13 of them, of course. Now he refuses to vote for them because he's scared of his own political base. And particularly, he's scared of this big left-wing protest in Washington, D.C. coming next Saturday, October 18th, and apparently is willing to shut down nutritional programs for young children and pay for our troops so he can get beyond that protest on October 18th and not face any blowback.
Yeah, I mean, it's a political football, no matter how you slice and dice it, right? I think that I would just love to shut the government down forever, to be honest with you, the majority of it. I mean, if you look at the monstrosity that it's become, it is nothing like what it was supposed to be. I mean, you're talking about over 2 million employees. You're talking about that I think 40% of our GDP goes to funding government entities, government workers. 40% of our GDP. If you take a look and you go look back and you listen to the Milton Friedman and Soul, at the inception of our country, when taxes first started rolling out in the early 1900s, for a great deal of time, it was in the single digits of the taxes that went to supporting the government. Now we're at 40%. It's not something that's sustainable. Doge was kind of a smoke and mirrors, in my opinion. I think it could have done a lot of good. I think it did do some good, but I think that good was completely exploded when you just poured all that extra money into the DoD, or the Department of War, as it's called now. So you do some savings with Doge. You get some of these lifelong bureaucrats to either resign or you can them. And then you just take $200 billion and throw it back into the Department of Defense. I don't see how that's helpful. I mean, we're trying to save money. I'm very upset about that. I think a lot of people in the MAGA sphere, because it's not just, at this point now, MAGA, it just encompasses not the left. Like, if you're not of the left, then it's almost like you're part of MAGA, which is, it's unfortunate, but it's kind of a good thing, because everyone can kind of see, everyone has some stake in the game, whether you're part of the Maha movement, whether you want to defund the Fed, whether you want the Epstein list. All of these little tiny coalitions have come, just formed together and say, we are just anti whatever you guys are, because the political left right now is just insane and we don't want any part of it. So MAGA has kind of adopted all these other groups in to try to push, whatever particular agenda that they think is most important, which is a good thing. You want as many people under the tent as you can get. The problem is, one of the main things that a lot of people wanted was, we wanted cuts. We didn't want wars. We wanted cuts. And we definitely didn't want the Department of War to get an extra $200 billion. That was very upsetting. I don't know how they can grow. They can recover from that. It's just a bad look, very bad look. So, like, all of these things where it comes to the shutdown, and he's talking about, they're all going to say the same thing. One's going to talk about, feeding children. The other's going to talk about, healthcare. Everyone's talking about talking points that are just to tug at heartstrings. When we want to get to the fact of the matter. What is actually going on in this government? Why are we hemorrhaging money left and right? Why is the middle class dying? Why can't normal people buy a house? Why all these things? This is what we want it fixed. We don't care about this stuff. I mean, if you're one of the people that lost their jobs and is currently being furloughed, I'm sorry, but maybe your job wasn't that important. Maybe that might be hard to say, that might be hard to hear, but maybe that's the truth. Do we need all these parks people, watching national parks. I don't know. Is that something that you feel like you're getting your money's worth out of? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I am. So not sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
It's outrageous political gamesmanship.
All right. In the meantime, we've had the situation where the president yesterday said that, well, he was asked a question, a hypothetical, if he would ever consider using the Insurrection Act. He said, hypothetically, I mean, yes, sure, I would do that. Senator Merkley is out there saying that Trump is manufacturing this crisis in Portland. Where do you come down on National Guard troops being deployed to deal with this issue, and is the Insurrection Act necessary?
Well, I don't think any American who's seen the history of attacks on federal authority and federal property in Portland going back at least 5 years would say it's manufactured. Look, you always want to rely on local police first, and the police forces in these cities can probably do the job if they're allowed to do the job. Unfortunately, you have left-wing Democratic mayors who don't just restrain them from enforcing ordinary criminal laws. You have the mayor of Chicago who is telling his police department explicitly that he's not allowed to support federal immigration officers in their city. So think about that. You could have a shootout between depraved, criminal, illegal aliens and federal immigration enforcement authorities, and the Chicago Police Department are not going to come to their assistance. So if this continues and you have an open defiance and resistance of federal law, then of course the president has to at least consider the use of the National Guard and, if necessary, invoking the Insurrection Act, as has happened from time to time throughout our history, because we cannot have Democratic-run cities openly resisting federal authority inside of their cities.
Well, let's hope it doesn't come to that. Keep us posted. Interesting on.
Yeah, I say it time and time again. This is a manufactured crisis. This is actually coming from the left. Not sure exactly why. I don't know how they're going to win this argument. But if you're not cooperating with ICE, then you're part of the problem. You're manufacturing the problem. You're manufacturing the issue. If these mayors, if these governors would just, at the very least, say, okay, when we get someone in our custody that is violent, when we get somebody for a gunpoint robbery, when we get somebody for a felony assault, when we get somebody for a murder, when we get somebody for a major crime, we will turn them over to ICE and we will assist. That's probably all that would need to happen. You don't need to turn over every single, every nanny and dishwasher and drywaller over to ICE. I don't think that's not what the argument is here. What the argument is here is you have violent criminals, repeat offenders that are constantly being arrested, and the local municipality is being told, do not cooperate with federal authorities. Do not cooperate with ICE. Do not turn these people over. I've seen it myself. People get arrested, that they have a deportation order for a serious crime. I'm talking about murder, attempted murder, and similar crimes. And if they make bail, they walk right out. And the authorities have no idea because they're not being informed when these people are leaving. Even if you wouldn't even have to turn them over to ICE. You would just have to tell ICE, at the very least, post when this person is being released, when he's making bail. If you would just do that, if they would just say, okay, we're not going to help you out, but this is when he just made bail, so he'll be leaving in the next 2 hours, and he'll be going through this door. You're not facilitating you're not transferring the prisoner over. You're just letting them know you have a window. If you can't make it during this window, then that's on you. But we're at least informing you he made bail, he's being released. They don't even do that. Then what ends up happening, the person ends up being released out to the general population, committing more crimes, and the cycle just continues. It just creates a hazardous environment for no reason whatsoever. These people are a drain on the legal system. They shouldn't be here. And it's got to be a 90-10 issue. It has to be a 95-5 issue, saying that somebody that was apprehended for a murder or for a violent robbery or felony assault should local authorities notify ICE if they have a deportation order. They want this person out of the country. They already know this person is a danger to the country and they want him removed. Your local jurisdiction just arrested him for X crime. And you're telling me that people don't want them to be notified because of this, for this? I just don't see it. I don't see it. I cannot see how. Maybe, I'm sure a bleeding heart liberal would say, they would cry due process, stuff like that. Say, listen, it's not like it's a first time offense for a lot of these people. This is something that's been going on. This is an issue. Our Our criminal justice system right now is somewhat of a joke. We have cashless bail. They keep getting out. They keep committing these crimes, and they've already, for whatever other state they came from before, they've been flagged as somebody that needs to get the hell out. Why can't we just do it? Why can't we just cooperate, at least for the violent people? That's all I'm saying. It seems to me like a lose-lose issue. I don't know how they're gonna square this, because it's a losing issue. They have to think of something else. They have to come to some other kind of conclusion, rather than just say everybody who's here legally, don't touch them and just let them keep doing what they're doing. How is that going to work? The average the public at large is not on your side for this. I'm sure there's a high contingency of very liberal lefties, maybe about 30% of the population, that says let them stay no matter what. But that's not a winning. You're not going to win with them. You're not. Guys, thanks so much for coming out. Please, all I ask, just hit the subscribe button. That's all I ask for you to do. If you don't do anything else, just subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. If you want to follow me on the X, 6283 Talk on the X. I'm John Soto. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care.